Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is Wednesday, the 6th of September 2023, and oh my god, I just feel like every day is like Groundhog Day. Every day is like you wake up and the first thing you think is, oh, what have the Tories done today? And let's talk about concrete in a moment, right? But first of all, I just want to talk about the fact that Generic, stood up in Parliament yesterday, and sorry, it wasn't yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. It was the 5th. Stood up in Parliament yesterday, and this is what he said. Like, look, I missed this news story when it broke in August. I think it was when I was on holiday, and it was reported in the Bolton Inquirer or something like that. But there were threats of essentially putting lawyers in jail for the crime of advising potential asylum seekers to say things that weren't potentially true in order to get their asylum claim verified in the UK. So the thrust of this is, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Robert Jenrick made this big speech in which it signed off. Let's see if I can just find the exact wording here. I'm just going to there you go. Okay, so this is what he stood up in Parliament and said yesterday. Last month, we announced the Professional Enablers Task Force, which will increase enforcement action against those lawyers and legal representatives who help migrants abuse the immigration system. Bit rich coming from a government that has abused the immigration system to the point where it is now fundamentally broken. But I'll go on. Those lawyers found to be coaching migrants on how to remain in the country by fraudulent means will face a sentence of up to life imprisonment. That's more than the maximum sentence for abusing children. This is the priority for our government. While our schools are falling down, this is their priority. Putting lawyers in jail for life. For life. The maximum sentence for fraud is 10 years. These are lawyers going to jail for life. And I'm guessing that this is kind of going to be a little bit up to the judge's discretion, whether what they've done is constitutionally illegal to tell people what to say in order to stay in the country. I'm flabbergasted that the government is doing this. And the person who's doing it is Honest Bob Jenrick. Thank you very much to the £5 super chat there, Johnny. Honest Bob Jenrick is my MP. Makes me feel dirty just saying that. I'm so sorry, Johnny. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. He's the guy who sat next to Richard Desmond a few years ago, and at the dinner. Richard Desmond is a porn peddler. He's a smut dealer. He's a guy who, mainstreamed readers' wives section of his titles, which I think included Razzler magazine. Anyone who ever walked past their hedge in the 1980s, 1990s would have found some of his material, his pornographic material, probably scrumpled up and slightly burnt in the hedge for some reason, because that's what happened in the 80s and 90s. Don't ask me why. We had white dog poo and we had porno mags that were scrumpled up in hedges. Anyway, he sat next to this purveyor of porn, and who was setting up to do a big land deal, like a property deal in London. But new regulations were coming in very, very soon, which would mean that this guy, this porn smuggler, porn purveyor, would have to pay, I think it was like £50 million of tax. and he didn't want to pay tax because he's rich, and rich people are like, no, that's my money. I like that. I want to keep that. I don't want to pay any tax if I can get away with it. So Robert Jenrick, I call him Jenrick, degenerate, sped up the process for him, for his mate who sat next to dinner, who sat next to at dinner, to get the process sped up in Tower Hamlets, where this place was being built, which was one of the most deprived areas of London, most deprived boroughs of London. And he sped up the process so that Tower Hamlets local authority wouldn't get anything of the 50 million that he was supposed to be spending. 50 million, significant figure, because I'm just looking at the Guardian website front page. And would you, Adam, or Eve it? The price of fixing school concrete crisis in England is approaching 150 million. So Robert Jenrick, who wants to put lawyers in jail for life, for representing their clients the best they can, which is their job. So he wants to put lawyers in jail for life for literally doing their job in a way that he does not approve of. Because don't forget, when it comes to people who are claiming asylum, when I say it's a grey area, it's difficult because often people are coming from countries that have wars going on, conflicts going on. They don't have their national IDs because, for whatever reason. I'll give you an example. In 1994, there was a 2-month period in which up to 800,000 people were massacred in Rwanda, chopped up with machetes mostly. And one of the problems that the Tutsis, who were being massacred by the Hutus, had was that there were government-issued ID cards which had your ethnicity or your tribe on the ID card. So if the mob caught you, they'll say, we want to see your ID. They had to show their ID, and if they didn't have their ID on them, they could be attacked. Or if they did and they said Tutsi, they could be attacked. So that's a reason why you might have, if you were legging it out of Rwanda, you might not have brought your ID card with you, for instance. Lots of people don't have passports. Famously, half the population of America do not have passports. It's not something that everyone has. And if you are in a country where you fear your own safety from the government of that country, because say you're gay and you're in Uganda and you could be put to death for being gay in Uganda, as one man is currently on death row in Uganda for the crime of being gay, how the hell do you apply for a passport to the government that's trying to kill you to get out of the country and prove where you're from? So, if this goes ahead, if this law goes ahead that this government, this disgusting, horrific government wants to put forward, you are going to have situations in which lawyers genuinely are trying to do the best thing for their client, which is what they're supposed to do. That is their job because they're lawyers. But because the paperwork isn't there, they might not know whether the person that they are representing to the best of their ability is actually a genuine asylum seeker or not. And it's not up to them to decide. I want these Tories out. God, I want them out. I don't just want them out of government. I want them out of circulation. Put it mildly. I want them in jail for what they've done to this country. We'll talk about this in a moment. I want to have a bit of a laugh in a moment and show you some of the newspapers, especially the Express today. I don't know if you've seen it already. Okay, so why is my anger so angry, says Duke Vengeance? Because, yes. Billion, not million, says Tim Ballon. I watch Beau with the Fifth Column every day, multiple times per day. Why not putting lawyers who defend tax avoidance schemes in life for life then? Guess twice. Well, exactly. And accountants. I really don't have time to keep up with American politics as well as this Putin shit show. That's from Vendetta. Legal Eagle is a great one for understanding the legalities of the Trump indictments. Talking to Legal Eagle, he always goes on about My Cousin Vinny, which to my shame I had never seen, with Joe Pesci. and Valve Macchio from Karate Kid, oh, what's her name? What was the name of her? She won the Oscar. Spider-Man's aunt. Oh, her. Anyway, I got around to watching it last week, and it is just as good as the Legal Eagle said it would be. And also, what I particularly liked is growing up in growing up working for my dad in his garage in Liverpool doing carburetors. Really, really satisfying. There's a line in there about when you take a carburetor off a car, you got to be really careful not to drop anything into the manifold. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly correct. So not only did they get all the lawyer stuff correct, it also got all the mechanical, like the car related stuff correct, which was quite exciting for me. Anyway, I've just spent the whole thing nudging my girlfriends, just going, it's true. Anyway, really cool. Anyway, GeoJ, thank you very much. PMQs today should be highly entertaining. £5 super chat, thank you very much. Yes, I think it will be, and I will be here if you want to watch it on the Labour social channel. We will be doing Safe for Work PMQs, in which I'm not allowed to swear, and we'll be seeing what on earth Fishy Vishy Sunak is going to say in response to the fact that he is so bang to rights on this. The fact that he said it was something like absolutely disgraceful. He used some language like that the other day to say that it was his fault that the budget for rebuilding schools was cut by him. He cut the funding. They needed the funding for 400 schools. It was already, they only had enough for 100 schools. He cut it down to 50 schools. He cut the budget by 50%. That was his choice. That was his decision. And now look at the Tories. Like Gillian Keenan, the education secretary, losing it after the camera's gone off. How about a bit of thanks, eh? Why don't they get some thanks? You're like, you're kidding me, aren't you? You want some thanks? Be putting in some time, One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Not just the Tories, Graham, but the right wing in general. Dangerous people born of dangerous thinking. Yeah, indeed. There was so I'm spending more time on Threads, by the way. If you want to follow me on Threads, it's Graham David Hughes at Graham David Hughes on Threads. There's one of the people that I follow there is Emma Kennedy, who's absolutely brilliant. She's an author, presenter, and she's funny as hell. And she pointed out that this guy in America, so we're just going to jump to America for a moment. This guy just got 22 years, the head of the Proud Boys, got 22 years yesterday. Yeah, do you remember that? He had a secret meeting in the White House 3 weeks before January the 6th. And he's just gone down for 22 years. And here's the kicker. He wasn't there on January the 6th. He just organised it. They described him as like the general, putting it all together. And there's a secret meeting with him and Trump. My God. John Bull, thank you very much. Super chats are coming in thick and fast today. Thank you very much. Like the Tories wanted a bonfire of EU legislation, can we have a bonfire of all legislation passed since 2010? Yes. However, what I think that Labour are going to do first is they're going to use statutory instruments to modify a lot of the stuff that the Tories have put through. And we were talking about this the other day, weren't we, when we were talking about tax loopholes. They can tighten up tax loopholes using statutory instruments. They don't need to do an act of parliament, which takes a long time to get through. And obviously you have to give up on certain things. There's a bunch of stuff that Labour can do when they get into power, if and when. And having someone who was a former prosecutor for the head of the prosecution service is the public prosecution service even is massively important because he understands the law. So hopefully it means that what can be done in a short space of time will be done. And if that means bringing in an act that says we are free to dick about with any law that the Tories brought in the last 13 years, then bring in that act. 14 years it will be next year. Have you seen the BBC stories that 13 schools shut because of RAC have had their renovation cancelled in 2010? Yeah, Christopher, so that goes back to the 50 billion with a B, not the 150 million that the government are claiming that it's going to cost them to fix these schools at the moment. They set aside £50 billion, over 50 billion, for the Building for the Future Fund. It was called something like that, and it was for over 700 schools to be rebuilt or fixed up. And the first thing that Michael Gove did when the little pop face bastards got into office as education secretary in 2010 was he went, no, we're not spending that on the nation's children. Gosh. And one of the MPs on Labour side, I think it was Labour, stood up yesterday and pointed out quite rightly that one of the reasons why the Tories don't really give a damn about the fact that the schools are crumbling and schools are falling down is their kids don't go to these schools. Their kids go to private schools. And it's another reason why we need to stop separating our children into social classes based on their parents' income. Absolute bubbles. Never the twain shall meet and never the twain do meet. Because these kids going to these posh schools, they end up going to Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, which have over 33% of their intake are from posh schools, private schools. And then they go into jobs in the city or in the media or in politics, and they hog all those top jobs. So the people that they meet with a state school background are very few and far between. And what also tends to happen is the people who have got a state school background, like Nadine Dorries or Dominic Raab or what's her name? The Education Secretary, Gillian Keenan. They tend to be absolute zealots. Priti Patel. They tend to be absolute zealots because they want to be part of the gang. They want to be part of the sadist gang that emanate from these private schools. I'm not going to have an argument here about private schools because I have them enough on Facebook, but privateschoolmafia.com. If anyone you meet is trying to defend the fact that private schools exist in this country, send them over to privateschoolmafia.com and say, how do you defend this? It's absolutely indefensible. Literally everyone on that list is a household name. And there's 667 of them and counting. I add a new one every day. There was a woman who was a Britain First type person, like BNP type person, who was a young blonde woman. And she tweeted yesterday or the day before that in her private school, they had to learn in a shed and the ceiling was falling in. But she did all right in her private school. And I'm like, another one to the list. One Angry Pagan. Graham, did you find out about the Stonehenge things? I'm very sorry, One Angry Pagan. I haven't had a chance to have a look at what they're doing with Stonehenge. As far as I'm aware, they're trying to put it in a tunnel. And obviously the Stonehenge monument, and you know this, but I'm just explaining it to everybody else. I'm mansplaining it to everyone else. It's not just the rocks. It's not just the stones that make Stonehenge. It's actually the whole area around Stonehenge has been cut in prehistoric times into concentric circles. And so the actual area that the henge takes up isn't just rocks. It's a lot bigger than that. Sarah says there is no defense for private. There should be no distinction now. And do you know what would really help? A millionaire on the PTA of every school in the country. You think the roofs would be falling in if a millionaire had their kids in those schools? No, they wouldn't. But the millionaires don't have their kids in those schools. The millionaires have their kids in private schools. Huge, huge, huge problem. Also, the fact that our ruling elite do not ever meet anyone from the working class unless there's some, event that they are forced to go to, probably against their will. Or they set it up so they knock on someone's door who's working class and they can say, yeah, I vote Tory because they represent the working class so well. Anyway, I threatened to show you the newspapers for tomorrow, so I will actually go ahead and do that now. For today, tomorrow's papers today. Do you know what would help if I had it actually set up so that when I pressed tomorrow's papers, it actually showed me tomorrow's bloody paper? So the concrete crisis is huge. I mean, this will bring down any other government. Any other government would be brought down by this. And obviously, on the front of the Daily Mirror, they've got this story, this flabbergasting story. Where did the money for our schools go? Well, 1 million from the rebuilding fund went to an IT firm that the education secretary's husband works for. Corruption on a level, on a magnitude that this country hasn't seen. I mean, we've had corrupt governments before. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me started on Ernest Marbles. But, oh my God, they're doing this in plain sight. And meanwhile, the Daily Express, which was formerly owned by the porn proprietor I was talking about earlier, Richard Desmond, French clearly need to be doing more to stop small boats. What? Hang on, what? Hey? Sorry, there's schools around the country, hundreds of schools around the country, face the threat of falling down because of the Tories, and they're going on about small boats. Why would they do that? Is this the Tory press office? Is this they send a little press release out and that becomes the front cover of the Daily Express? Look over there, plebs. There's a boat. One angry pagan says tax on private schools is a good start, more needed. Yeah, tax them first and then burn them down. No, I'm joking. Just metaphorically. I mean, some of them are lovely buildings. You could use them for other things like National Trust things. And the Daily Heil, rather than leading on anything about the concrete in schools, is now leading on 1 million on sickness benefits. Will have to find a job. Which is kind of delivered in a way of just this horrifically smug, disgustingly condescending, horrible, sadistic manner. Because don't forget, the people who write for the Daily Mail, privately educated to a man, are very, very rich. These are some of the richest people in the country. They write for this rag, the Daily Mail. And basically, they're sitting there. Most of them work from home, although they hate people who work from home. And they've got their arms folded, and they're like this. There's a little smile on their face. Horrible little smile. 1 million people on sickness benefits. Gonna have to find a job. So these are people who are some of the most vulnerable people in society. People who are ill, people who have mental health problems, people who have physical health problems, people who are disabled. And the Daily Mail is leading with, they'll have to find a job, won't they? Well, there you go. Anxiety problems, mobility problems. Gonna have to find a job now, aren't you? I can't get across to you adequately because I don't have the language. I don't have the words. Maybe if I spoke German, I might have the words. I've got some great words in German. I just can't get across to you how much I hate these people. Honestly, I you know that line about reading people's obituary with great delight from Mark Twain? I'll go beyond that. I'll have a party. I'll have a freaking party. Every single one of these bloody absolute mofos who pops their clogs. I'm going to have a big house party. Even if it is in the middle of a pandemic. No, I won't. That's a joke. I'm not going to have a party in the middle of a pandemic because I'm a responsible human being. Veg Pie, £5 super chat. Thank you very much. Maybe they were always corrupt. We just didn't have the tools to search. Maybe the Daily Telegraph, which is another Tory media outlet. You know, they literally send faxes out because probably still use faxes. They use faxes to send a press release and they say, print this. This is the government tell these papers what to put on their front covers. And they're like, oh, we're looking really bad at the moment because schools are literally collapsing on children. So we're gonna have to. So these are the headlines here in the Telegraph. I don't know if you can see all these, but you've got back to work drive shelved until 2025. Reforms to make it harder to claim sickness benefit. Get off your backsides, Keenan tells schools. That's the education secretary blaming the schools for the fact that the schools are falling down, other than the minister in charge of schools, whose fault it obviously wasn't, or the prime minister who was the chancellor when he cut the funding to rebuild the freaking schools. The schools should just have money. They should just make money from somewhere. How do you money? Maybe you can sell half your school children to China for organs. Maybe you could do that. Sell their livers. They'll sell one kidney from every child in the school. Sell it, and then you can fix your roof yourself. We're running these as businesses, We can't be sitting around just teaching children and getting them to pass their bloody GCSEs. No. We got to be making money. And you should be using that money, investing it in the school building. Because that's how it works, isn't it? My God. There's a little story here about fining social media networks for allowing under 13s to access their content. I think they should fine all these fuckers. I mean, these people for allowing anyone over the age of 60 to access their content, because obviously people over the age of 60, not everyone, not all boomers, but many boomers, have very little in the way of critical faculties. There's a story in the Star about this idiot who put a hole in the Great Wall of China, and the Times has a picture of Meghan Markle on the front, which is nice. And then mentally ill to work from home, because putting people back into stressful situations. Because if you work from home, it is less stressful, generally speaking, but not that much less stressful. If you've got a project that's got to be done by a certain time, anyone who has, attended school and revised for exams know that it's bloody stressful. Whether you are in school or whether you're at home, you're revising for an exam, it's stressful. If you've got a presentation to make for work, it's bloody stressful. If you've got something that you had to do for work and you've got a deadline coming up, deadlines are stressful. Yeah, but people who are living with anxiety, crippling anxiety, so it makes it difficult for them to just function the way other people do. We're gonna discriminate against them because we need people to get back to work. No, we need our government to get back to work. The job of protecting us. Thank you very much to David Faulkner for the 38 Hong Kong dollars there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, David. Any government in the world, it has one job, effectively one job, and that is to protect us. This is the social contract. This is the Leviathan that Thomas Hobbes talked about. This is the idea that you give up certain rights to the government, and in response, they protect us from crime, foreign invading armies, disease, pandemics, ignorance, con artists, people who want to squander the money on ridiculous stuff and want to buy a yacht with our money. We should be protected against them. We should be protected against being put into situations in work that affect negatively our physical well-being. So we have the health and safety executive. We should be protected against people who want to take all our things, who want to murder us. We need to be protected against all this stuff. And the government's job is to protect us. That is its only freaking function in life, is to protect us. And it doesn't. All this government is doing is screwing us for every penny, protecting us against high bills, protecting us against companies that want to price gouge, protecting us against companies that want to profiteer from war, protect us from the environment going crazy because we're burning all this tar sand and oil and extinction juice. Protect us against all this stuff. Protect us against water companies pouring sewage into the rivers on dry days. We only do it when it's overflowing, when there's been lots of rain. There was no rain for 2 months. There was a drought and you still put sewage in the river. Oh yeah, but there were shareholders and we needed to keep the shareholders happy. And no, the government's job should be to protect us. That is its main sole purpose and function. And that's why we give up our right to go out and, steal, murder, cause carnage to the government. We give up those rights and we say, okay, we're going to give up these rights. And the social contract says that you will protect us. You will protect us against against complications in childbirth. You will protect us when we get older, against cancer, against the effects of cancer, against dementia, so we don't end up on the streets. You will protect us. You will protect. That is your job. You are there to protect us. And does this government protect us from anything? No. I want protection from this government. And the only way we're going to get that is through a Labour government getting in the next election. I'm sorry to turn this into a Labour Party bloody political broadcast. Labour are doing things and done things that I don't agree with, because you're not going to agree with everything that any political party does, genuinely, if you care about politics and you actually take an interest. But they are the only way of getting the Tories out of office. And we need to do that as soon as possible, because this country is, I want to say going to the dogs, but it's already gone there. It's well below that. I wish I'd done that little rant there without the Financial Times and the eye over my shoulder, but there you go. How odd the right were fine with paying drinking Tories a huge amount not to work, huge amount to the royals to do now, but hate giving a pittance to those who actually need it. Yeah. £3 million we pay every year for protection for Prince Andrew. Sweaty nonce. £3 million a year. Sweaty nonce. He should be in jail. It's okay, Graham. Labour Social, the clue is in the name. Thank you. Having anxiety and chronic depression is effing horrible. I'm tired all the time, constantly questioning myself on if I'm doing the smallest things right. Sometimes I don't get to sleep for days. It's shit. That's from Duke. Yeah, Duke, I sympathise so much. I've known people very close to me with anxiety, depression, different mental health problems, borderline personality disorder. It's difficult. It is really difficult. And I've got to say, some people I know that, they deal with this. They're the bravest people I know. They don't think they're brave because they're like, oh, I'm getting scared about everything. But most people don't get scared about stuff and get afraid anyway. Whereas people with anxiety, they don't know why they're afraid. It's not a conscious decision to freak out about something that they shouldn't be freaking out about. And yet they overcome that fear. They find ways, they find techniques to be able to overcome that and go and do it anyway. And they do. And that is amazing. Some of the best people I know suffer silently in life because of just the way their brains are wired. It's nobody's fault. But instead of demonizing people who have to deal with this stuff, we should be celebrating them. We should be saying, well, well done. Give them a pat on the back. Not saying, oh, you gotta get back to work. You gotta work. And just really go, like, if you ever attempt to share one of those bloody Facebook posts about, oh, you shouldn't use the self-checkout at the supermarket, this is linked. And I'm like, oh, come on. Why should someone who has the money and the time who doesn't work in a supermarket, who's bleating on about the fact that they want a human to do a terrible, terrible job? I don't mean like a bad job as in like they've made a bad job of it. I mean like working as a cashier in your one life that you have on this planet isn't optimal, is it? I mean, I don't mean to be offensive to people who work on the cash desk, but I'm sure given the choice that 99.9% of them would rather do something else with their time on this planet. And so I see more and more things where it becomes automated. We use AI. We scan our own groceries when we leave in the supermarket as the road to universal basic income, which is where I think we need to be, because forcing humans to do crappy jobs and saying you need a job, that's the most important thing, employment's the most important thing, rather than letting people do what they enjoy and what they're good at and what they excel at, is wrong, because we're only here once. We're only here once. This is it. It's not a rehearsal. Anyway, right, so just before I go, just a couple more messages here. My wife, this is from Bad Bones. My wife is a biomedical student, and I think she's on the verge of a breakdown. She cannot spread herself all over the job she's expected because the funding isn't there for the staff needed. Exactly. I mean, this is why the idea of, I don't know, everyone's going to have a job and they get paid X amount for having a job. And my attitude towards this is, you have a system where if you do your own dishes, that's not a job. But if you do your neighbor's dishes, that's a job. If you clean your own house, that's not a job. But you clean your neighbor's house, that's a job. If you look after your children, that's not a job. If you look after your neighbor's children, that's a job. What? You're doing the same thing. You're literally doing the exact same physical activity. Why is one a job and one not a job? I don't get that. How, honestly, if you take a step back and then we have to explain this to the children of the future, they'll be like, what? Eh? Once we have UBI. But I would like to see a situation in which you don't have to work if you don't want to. Therefore, you can spend time raising your children. You can spend time with your family. You can spend time doing artwork if you want. Okay, you will have enough money not to buy a house, not to buy a car necessarily, but you'll have enough money to live. You'll have enough money to rent somewhere, to pay for the heating, pay for enough food to keep you going. You know, just it's not going to be the bare minimum, but it's not going to be a lot. You know, there's not going to be much left over for a foreign holiday at the end of each year. If you want to go on a holiday, work. But here's the thing, you wouldn't have to work full time, and you'd only have to do the jobs that you wanted to do. And the jobs that people don't want to do because they're horrible, like cleaning out the sewers, the companies or the government, hopefully these will be nationalised in the future, will have to pay a lot more for people doing that job. Because you know what? I don't want to do it. I don't want to be forced to do it, and I don't want anyone else to be forced to do it. So if someone gets paid, like, you know, 100 quid an hour to go down into the sewers to clean them out, I'm like, well, okay, fair. I think that job is worth it. I think that is worth it a lot more than somebody who comes in as a consultant and gets paid £1,000 an hour to turn up to a business and go, yeah, well, have you ever thought about Lotus 123? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Can I be £1,000 now? Anyway, Jim Bob says someone has to clean toilets and work at sewage farms. Graham, a little bit of middle class outlooks to down on certain jobs. I agree. Sorry, that was Jim Bob. I was addressing that. I was saying if people do those jobs, they should be paid way more than they're being paid at the moment. So it's not like you're doing it for the love of the job, but you're like, hey, I'll do this job for a few weeks, and it wouldn't necessarily be the whole year because, you know, you get people who go, yeah, I can do that for a week. If it means, you know, I get 10 grand and then I can go on holiday, fine, suits me. The system would work a lot better if it actually paid people for how difficult the job and unpleasant the job they had to do would be. I.e., like, I would quite happily work as a lawyer, as a barrister, putting every single Tory MP in jail, and I would do that pro bono. I would do that for free because I'd enjoy it so much. Just saying. Right. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've really gone over today. That's the point, Graham. Just pay the checker people more for the judgery pay. Yeah, but I mean, we don't have to. Say you have 20 checkouts. You don't have to have that many. I mean, you'll always have to have some in any supermarket. You can't have it completely automated, I don't think. But if instead of paying 20 people £10 an hour, you're paying 3 people like £60 an hour. Great, bring it. Okay, do it. It costs you the same, but those people who are working on those jobs will be getting a lot more for doing it, and could, you know, work it around their lives. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we could do to make people's lives better, and the Tories are doing none of them. So I'm going to be back at 12 o'clock for the first Prime Minister's question time of the new term. Parliament. We're going to have Rishi Sunak up against Keir Starmer. I'm going to try not to swear. It's called Safe for Work Prime Minister's Questions because I used to call it not Safe for Work Prime Minister's Questions because I used to swear so much. But now I'm trying to clean my act up. I'm trying very hard. But I'll leave you in the capable hands of James O'Brien if you want to switch over to the LBC show now. And then I was going to do a thing where we go over to the Discord server after the shows each morning, but this week's been a bit disrupted with the kids going back to school and everything. So I'll be launching that next week. But if you do want to become a YouTube member, just click on the join button. Or if you want to become a Patreon supporter of this channel, head over to patreon.com/Labour Social. Right, that's it. Okay. Until 12 o'clock, I'll say thanks for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for all the chat. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.